Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson, and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. And I'll be back on the air live at 6 o'clock this evening with top-ranked money manager Ken WINANS on Winning with WINANS. Right now, it's Mottek On Money, the voice of business news here in Los Angeles, live on the air on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And yes, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks moving higher to kick off the new week. Investors and government workers especially staring down a possible U.S. government shutdown this week that actually risks the delay of releasing the big enchilada of monthly economic reports. And that, this audience well knows, is the monthly jobs report we get from the Labor Department. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 69 points, the S&P 500 of 18, the NASDAQ up 107, all the major averages just below all-time highs achieved last week. The volatility index moving higher today by 5%, and the yield in the 10-year note is at 4.14%. Investors taking the risk, it seems, of a looming midweek government shutdown in stride as we approach October 1st, choosing instead to focus on some other developments, including the strength of the economy. President Trump is meeting with congressional leaders today, and we'll get an update live from Washington on a possible government shutdown and the effort to avert that possible shutdown. We'll be hearing directly from Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, who has a ringside seat to all this in Washington. The Labor Department did say today that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which releases key economic reports, including Friday's planned monthly jobs report, will suspend all operations if there's a government shutdown. All three of the major averages booking back-to-back gains today, finishing not far from record highs. Meanwhile, the dollar retreated relative to other currencies. Treasuries rallied. Gold and silver. Here's a big story for you. Gold and silver continue to shine, with gold hitting a record high today, getting close to $3,900 an ounce, and silver hit $47 an ounce, getting close to its all-time high of $49.45, last seen back in 1979. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about it with Barry Stuppler, the founder of Stuppler & Company and Mint State Gold in Woodland Hills. He's also former president of the American Numismatic Association. Crypto is also on the rebound today, with Bitcoin jumping above 113,000. In fact, right now above 114,000 to start off the week in positive territory. ETH is back to 4,200 or so. Big merger deal. This is a big deal and kind of fun and games, too. Video game maker Electronic Arts confirming today that it'll be acquired by Saudi Arabia's PIF Sovereign Wealth Fund, private equity firm Silver Lake, and Jared Kushner's affinity partners, in a deal valued at $55 billion. This will be the largest ever leveraged buyout, and certainly the biggest in the video game business, which is big business. We see EA shares moving up nearly $9 today at $202 and change. Another victory for President Trump in a legal battle, this one involving Google's parent company. Google agreeing to pay $24.5 million to resolve the president's claims of being banished from his YouTube channel after the January 6, 2021 riot at the Capitol was illegal censorship, according to a court filing. That settlement disclosed today ends the president's long-running legal challenge to that suspension. The filing says $22 million will go toward construction of a new ballroom at the White House, a project that's near and dear to the president. He's been talking about that. No comment on this from Google. Joining us now on the markets, the economy, gold, crypto, and the whole works, top-ranked money manager Ken WINANS, president and chief investment officer at WINANS Investments at WINANSinvestments.com. Ken WINANS, also a market historian, author of numerous books. He's also a Forbes magazine contributor. He has his crypto credentials, too, and most importantly, he's host of Winning with WINANS, heard every Monday evening at 6 p.m. right here on your favorite station, 790 KABC. Ken WINANS, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Well, Frank, here we are on the eve of the government shutdown, and I don't know if anybody's looked at it, but it's always interesting to see how the government says we are going to furlough non-essential workers. Again, I think that's kind of an oxymoron when you talk that way. But it is interesting that here we are, in spite of all this news, certainly we still have tariff talk. Now we have government shutdown talk. And yet the S&P 500, it knock on wood, as of right now, if this is the end of the month, this is going to be the best month return for a September month return for the S&P 500 since 2010, Frank. So it just goes to show this never-ending climb the wall of worry that seems to have everybody scared. I would also say one other quick thing that's worthwhile noting, that I think anybody who's trying to make investment decisions based on month-to-month guidance from government reports has found that certainly earlier this year that was a bad way of trying to manage your portfolios. And then the number one thing that I constantly seem to be battling people about, it is the strength of the dollar. When you look at the fact that in spite of these big changes that we're looking at in Washington, and certainly with geopolitical policies, and you're looking at the dollar, that everybody, unfortunately, some people make it sound like it's the worst it's ever been. Simply not true. Year to date, it's down about 7%. It's still well within the range of where it's been. And then I'll throw one other interesting piece of information that was posted in Barron's this weekend. The percentage of foreign ownership of U.S. assets in the second quarter was 32%. This is a record that goes back to, and Frank Mottek, you're going to be shocked when I tell you this, 1968. So if the U.S. is such a bad, horrible place to invest money, as many of my counterparts in my industry would tell you, why do you have statistics like that? That, to me, is a meaningful statistic, not month-to-month gauges from the government.
On there live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans. I love the fact that you're a market historian and can share all that with us. And a lot going on certainly here. And looks like the latest reports we're getting here from Washington, no deal following a meeting with President Trump and congressional leaders today. They came out of that private White House meeting without an agreement to keep the federal government open, and setting the prospects now of a wide-scale shutdown in major services beginning in less than 30 hours from now here. So we're going to be following this story very, very closely. Ken Winans, and front page of the Wall Street Journal today. Very interesting articles today. Credit markets are hot, but froth is worry. Auto-related bankruptcies trigger investor fears on corporate debt. What about what's happening on that front here?
Well, corporate bonds have been just on an absolute tear. I mean, because we manage a lot of them at Winans Investments, and I mean the prices of these bonds ever since the Fed started dropping interest rates had taken off. Now, you just mentioned, the simple fact that we're having the biggest leverage buyout of all time, over $50 billion of electronic arts. That's all going to be funded with government debt, corporate debt. So again, many companies are taking advantage of these higher prices to try to sell off some of their debts. And it's not a surprise from that standpoint. I would just say this, there are always going to be corporate bankruptcies of certainly one way, shape, or form. Certainly when Best Buy went through its problems, there was a lot of concern about retail bonds. That simply did not come true. So again, I think that, you just need to know what's in your portfolio. Try not to be overexposed to any one area. But it is becoming a real problem for investors who need income to try to find those bonds. And I have to say also, an awfully big part of it is it's people moving out of municipal bonds toward corporate bonds because they just have real concerns about what's happening. Certainly in California, we know what the problems are. I don't know anybody who is wanting to go out there biting at the chomp to buy city and county of Los Angeles municipal bonds, certainly with a lot of the bad news coming from there. So that's happening all over the place for a lot of people, and they're just going toward corps. So Frank, point is, yes, they're certainly not as cheap as they were, let's say, in August, but I still think that you can, if you're working with somebody, they can still find you some decent paper.
All right, the other big story, gold at a record high, approaching $3,900 an ounce now. Silver at the highest we've seen in quite some time, getting close to 47, actually popped above 47 earlier. What about gold and silver here?
Well, what's funny about silver is a little bit of a history lesson here. There were two very wealthy Texas oilmen. They were trying to actually corner the silver market back in the late 70s, and it ended up blowing up on them, and they ended up losing a big chunk of their fortune. So it is funny that silver is claiming a legitimate demand. When people ask me this question, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Now, I just mentioned that the dollar is actually maintaining a relatively decent value, well within range of what we've seen in just this century alone. Anybody who wants to see what the dollar's traded since 1800, go buy my book and you can see a chart of it. But we're nowhere near the lows. So if you don't have the dollar falling out of bed, what are the other logical conclusions about gold, silver, platinum? Certainly copper's had a good run this year. Palladium's beginning to move. It has to be global demand. Now, certainly central banks around the world, there's been long talk about trying to diversify out of owning dollars into metals. Certainly we have people in this country buying gold left and right. Some of it might seem a little speculative. I think especially people buying coins. But Frank, as a technician who monitors these kind of things, especially things in commodities, this rally is real. Yes, you can argue it's certainly not a young bull market in metals any longer. But when I look at the internals of it, I don't see any sign yet that gold is reaching a top or silver. If anything, they are what we say is having a melt up. People are buying any little dip and they're going into it.
All right, let me ask you a question that was popular back during the financial crisis days. If gold does go to 4,000 or even 5,000, let's say, would you sell it?
It would really depend on what the price of the market's telling me. I've learned a long time ago, I don't try to tell the market what a height is. I would say that at that point, when you own a commodity, it is not like owning a stock. And I always say, don't love your investments. Love your friends, your family, your pets, but don't love a stock, a bond, or a position in gold. Everybody should be thinking in terms of, there might come a point in time to rebalance my portfolio. I know the gold bugs out there will hold under any condition. I would just caution and go back and remember those hits you took along the way. And certainly we've seen that happen before. But what I would say is there will come a point in time where there will be basically people trying to take some profits off the table. And at that point in time, I would certainly begin to reduce my exposure. But right now, I'm holding full positions in all these metals.
All right, turning now to digital gold, so-called crypto, and what about the holders or hodlers, they call them, of people holding crypto, right? We see Bitcoin rebounding, starting the new week here above 114,000 ETH, which is now above 4,200. Doge at 24 cents. So we had a pullback last week. There was a lot of talk about whether the crypto summer is over and all that. And what are your thoughts here on Bitcoin and the other cryptos here now?
Here's the thing about Bitcoin, and I know we always seem to forget about this very interesting relationship it has with the NASDAQ. The fact the NASDAQ is as strong as it is seems to tell me that although you can argue that Bitcoin has gone through a little bit of a sideways siesta, which is very normal after a major bull run, but I have a very tough time believing that Bitcoin is going to fall out of bed with the NASDAQ continuing to move up. I mean, we're still trying to understand this quarterly relationship. And by the way, it's not in lockstep. It doesn't mean that every single day that when the NASDAQ goes up, that Bitcoin's going to necessarily follow. But I do look at it quarterly, and I do watch, technical, certainly things like technical analysis on cryptos, especially moving averages. And we are at a point where you would expect it, some of the demand to start coming back into it. Certainly the same with Ethereum. It had that wonderful bounce back, pulled back to an old high, starting to find its bottom again. So again, I think, I still think it makes sense for people who are trying to reallocate their portfolios, and you're grown comfortable that crypto is here to stay. This is not a bad time to be looking at, especially some of the ETFs. Certainly IBIT would be a good example of it. If you just want to put your toe in the water, start getting used to it, that's not a bad place to go. And certainly I've been doing that with my portfolios. But I think, again, it's at one of those points, Frank, but if you have the NASDAQ for any reason blow up, I do think that Bitcoin would have some problems.
All right, what about the equities associated with cryptos, these digital asset treasuries and all that, Circle, Bitmine, and those names?
Oh, yeah. Well, they've certainly, okay, here's part of the problem. The ones that have gone public within the last year, which is a large number of them, everybody needs to remember the rules of the game with IPOs, which is what we used to call the syndicate, the backers of these new shares. They have to commit to backing them, meaning they provide stability to the market. It's modified a bit today because a lot of these are on the NASDAQ, but I think that the same rules apply They're not allowed to turn their back on them and watch them blow up. And that's a lot of it because you have insiders selling into the market. You might have had some prearranged deals that were done that might sound insidious, but it was part of the contractual deal of the IPO. You really don't know until you get a full year out to see what the true supply and demand of these are. But right now, they're still holding their prices well. I do think, again, when I look at something like Coinbase, which has been publicly traded for a long time, it has been a roller coaster this year. It's up big right now, but we all know it's had those horrible downdrafts. I'd be more inclined, if you're looking at buying the equity of the cryptos, if you're going to step into any of the new ones like Circle that came public recently, do yourself a favor. Do look at the old publicly traded crypto type stocks like Coinbase and make sure that there's not something funny going on there, because you might find you buy yourself into a bit of a short-term problem.
All right, well, we have the chance here. Any specific places where we are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, I'm going to sound like an old broken record, Frank, but I'll tell you what, we all have to remember, and it's still a shock to most people when I tell them this, that one of the top performing groups this year are utilities. And I think whether you're talking about nuclear power, you're talking about just the general increase in power needs, new plants, new natural gas plants coming online. They're even talking about coal yet again. And this group as a whole has done very well this year. I'll just throw a couple of names out there that I track very closely. I think it makes a world of sense for people to take a look at something like Centerpoint, symbol CNP, or NiSource, symbol NI. They both pay dividends. They're both not too far away from their moving averages. And the group overall has done very well. Those two stocks actually they've not only had a good year, they've had a good quarter, and they've had a good month. The bottom line is people are buying the dips in these stocks, and I find that most people, they're way, way underexposed in two areas, defense stocks and utilities, and they're way overexposed in the Magnificent Seven. Take this time to rediversify out. Last but not least, we're getting ready to go into an earnings season within the next 2 weeks. I think it will be very volatile because of the valuations on a lot of stocks. So it's not a bad time to diversify now, just in case there's hiccups in any of your big favorites. You don't just get creamed.
Fantastic, Ken. It should be noted, vinyl has made a big comeback, so there's nothing wrong with sounding like a broken record these days. In fact, it's actually very cool. So great job as always, right? Looking forward to speaking with you again at 6 o'clock this evening. We will continue the conversation and go through the whole works, and a lot going on. Top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, President and Chief Investment Officer at Winans Investments at winansinvestments.com. Most importantly, host of Winning with Winans, heard every Monday evening at 6 p.m. right here on 790 KABC. Ken, thank you very much, and look forward to speaking with you again later this evening.
Sounds good, Frank. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Out to the freeways we go now on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Possible government shutdown. Yeah, whatever. That seemed to be the reaction on Wall Street today, with stocks moving higher. The Dow up 69 points at the bell at 46,316. The S&P 500 up 18 at 6,661. And the NASDAQ up 107 at 22,591. The yield on the 10-year note at 4.14%. President Trump and congressional Democrats emerging from a private White House meeting this afternoon without a deal to keep the federal government open, setting up the prospects of a big government shutdown starting in about, less than 30 hours from now. The price of gold moving higher today, hitting record highs, approaching $3,900 an ounce. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it with Barry STUPPLER, founder of STUPPLER & Company and Mint State Gold, coming up in the next half hour. Right now, gold hovering at around $3,856 and change. Silver popped above $47 an ounce today, just below $47 right now. Platinum, palladium, all moving higher. Price of oil pulling back down to around 63 and change. The cryptos have rebounded to kick off the new week. Right now, Bitcoin's above 114,000 again. ETH at 42.24. Solana at 213. And Doge at the moment at 24 cents. Looks like a GLD, that's the gold ETF, moved up nearly $6 today at 352 and change. And silver, the silver ETF, SLV, moved up 64 cents at 42.50. Shares of Google pulling back more than $2 today to $244 and change. On the news today that Google, according to Bloomberg, agreed to pay $24.5 million to resolve the president's claims that being banished from his YouTube channel after the January 6th, 2021 riot at the Capitol was illegal censorship. And now the latest news here on 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Football season is here.
Oh, man.
Believe has the podcast to enhance your football experience.
We got to embarrass them into doing things the right way.
From the pros.
Definitely one of the most interesting quarterback rooms ever.
To college.
Michigan is set at 8.5 wins.
To fantasy.
If you feel that way, why didn't you trade him?
Become a better fan and listen to the football podcasts from Believe.
Oh, man.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. One of our top stories, possible government shutdown this week. Wall Street seems to be taking that news in stride. With the stock market moving higher today, the president and Democrats emerged from a White House meeting this afternoon without a deal to keep the government open. Following all these developments closely with a ringside seat, joining us live now is Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, America's leading taxpayer advocate. Grover, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Absolutely. Great to be with you. And yes, 7 months ago, Mr. Schumer, the head of the Democrats in the Senate, told all his senators, do not let there be a shutdown. This will allow Trump to make all the decisions about what gets funded and what doesn't get funded. And they listened to him, although a lot of the backbench radicals said, we want to do something. We want to do something big. We want to oppose him. We want to shut the government down. And he said, don't do that. That will give him more power. So they extended for 7 months the continuing resolution. So everything just continued as normal. Nothing, no ups, no downs on the budget. And then we got to October 1st, or about to get to October 1st. And this time around, the Democrats, the backbenchers, the people who want to show they're fighting, insisted that they shut the government down. The Republicans in the House passed, they have a majority in the House of Representatives, they passed the law which says we continue the budget as is for 2 months so we can look at it and see what else we might do, and then we'll do another budget coming down the road. And the Republicans in the Senate said, we'll do the same thing. They have 53 votes. What they don't have, though, is enough votes to stop a filibuster. So with only 41 votes, the Democrats can say, we say no, you cannot pass this bill, which they've done. So the Democrats said, we're going to blow this up. We're going to blow this up. And Schumer, this time, Schumer, the head of the Democrats, instead of telling the crowd, the mob, calm down, he gets in front of the mob and says, we're going to shut everything down. And so even though he knows better, even though he knows that this puts the Office of Management and Budget, the administration, the Trump administration, in charge of deciding what bills to pay. It's about 25% of the budget doesn't have money for it now. And they're going to be able to lay certain people off, not 25%, but they'll lay some people off as a way of saving money. In the past, what Congress would do is they'd say, okay, you can take the next 3 days or next 3 weeks or even 2 months off, and we won't pay you, but when we come to a deal, we'll give you your back pay. So you're going to get paid. The government won't save a penny, and you won't work for 3 days or 3 weeks or a couple of months. It's not a bad deal for a government employee. You don't have to work, and you get paid. This time they're being told there are too many federal employees. When Biden and Obama got there, they just larded the place up with political allies. And there are too many government employees, many more than are needed. And they're going to start laying some off to save money. So unlike in the past where you didn't save any money, matter of fact, you just gave people a holiday and then paid them as if they had been at work, this time this will be taken as a way to reform the size of government, not across the board 1% cut or something, but rather, where is it we have too many staff? Where is it we're spending too much money, and making some judicial decisions that, frankly, Congress refused to make over the years. So, and today, they had a last meeting. Schumer went in and wanted $1.5 trillion in additional spending. That wasn't going to happen. So you knew he was just sort of playing to his base, saying, look at how tough I am. I mean, Schumer has to get reelected as the Democratic leader after the next election. And there's several Democrat congressmen who are running, the candidates for Congress, saying, I want Schumer's head because he doesn't fight hard enough. And Schumer has talked some serious candidates into running, said, tell your wife that I'll get support for you. Go ahead and quit your job. And he's talked people into running, and then somebody runs against it, says, I'm going to run against Schumer's candidate. So Schumer could see himself losing 3 or 4 Senate seats because he's disliked by the more liberal wing of the party, and he could lose his leadership position. He's not in an easy position. He's got to make a very tough decision. He decided to throw in basically with the mob.
On the line with Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, your taxpayer advocate in Washington, looking out for you. And so what's the next step in this chess game here? Now that this White House meeting has ended without any deal, is there going to be a Senate vote now? And what kind of drama can we expect in the next 30 hours or so?
I don't know if they'll have a vote. Maybe they want to have a vote to show how tough they were. There are rumors going around that maybe there are enough moderate Democrats who fear, handing all this power over to the Office of Management, all this judgment, all this ability to decide. They could stop it at this last minute if they provided enough votes to have 60 votes. You got to give them 7 or 8 votes. It's not impossible. Some people thought it would happen a while ago. But probably the most likely thing is that we go into quote-unquote shutdown, which doesn't mean the Army doesn't shut down and Social Security doesn't shut down. All that stuff continues. What shuts down are all the ancillary parts of government that maybe shouldn't be part of the federal government in the first place. And that's where you'll see some saving of tax dollars by saying to people, we don't need 10 of you here, maybe we only need 8. Something that happens in the private sector all the time. But since the government sector always thinks there's plenty of free money from other people, they almost never make those decisions. They may be making them now.
Very interesting. And on the line with Grover Norquist, live from Washington. And you're right, we should be saying partial government shutdown, not obviously a total government shutdown. But one thing that might be affected, and it looks like there is going to be a partial government shutdown. We were warned today by the Department of Labor that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which releases the important economic readings, including what we call here the big enchilada monthly economic reports, the monthly jobs report we get from the Labor Department, will not be released on Friday. Might that rattle the markets? And what's your reaction to that? Has that ever happened before?
I'm not sure that has happened. Interesting that you can't project from where they are. Do remember that this is exactly the people predicting how many jobs there are or telling you how many jobs there are that have been off by 1 million in each of the last several years. And oddly enough, always in Biden's favor. So there is a real unhappiness on the part of Republicans for the fact that the Bureau of Labor Statistics comes up with statistics that made Bush look bad just before he lost the election, tried to make Biden look good just after, not Biden, the lady who was running instead of Biden, try to make them look good just before they lost to Trump. But there was every effort. It appears, it smells like they do a serious job of trying to help the Democrats look good. And after the election, they then say, oh, well, we were off by 1 million in the previous year. That's a lot to be wrong. And how come it takes that long to figure it out?
Yeah.
So there's something rotten in Denmark there.
All right. What's your prediction? Are we going to see a partial government shutdown, or somebody going to pull a rabbit out of the hat?
I think the smart money, or it's smart money. Most of the bets go for a partial shutdown. It is possible that Schumer and 8 Democrats get together and talk him out of it, and put together a vote that says no. But then imagine the fight inside the Democratic primaries in states like Michigan, where you've got serious left of center progressives against somebody that Schumer kind of handpicked. Then the blood on the floor comes in the primaries in next year. So that would sort of delay the fight inside the Democratic Party. And then the thing to watch is what happens with those primaries. Because then you may be nominating people who can't win a general election.
No rabbit and no hat.
Yes, probably no rabbit, probably no hat. Yes,
okay.
That would be my guess.
All right, we'll be watching for it. I know you will be too, Grover. Thank you very, very much for that comprehensive update live from Washington. That is Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game, or maybe your next job.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.
Actor Michael Rosenbaum, he knows some of the most talented people in the business, and now he's getting the inside story.
Talking with Josh Duhamel. Did you ever suffer with anxiety? I would put tremendous pressure on myself to deliver, because if I didn't know what else I was going to do. David Tennant, if you could do Hamlet, nothing should make you nervous.
I was on the floor of my dressing room in the fetal position.
I've been there.
The Inside of You podcast.
I hope you enjoy the podcast. We talk about mental health and life and all that stuff. Thanks for being here.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Did you see it? The SpaceX rocket launch last evening at around 7 o'clock last night. You could see it very nicely. Beautiful, clear sky just at around sunset. And that thing really took off, just like the price of gold and silver today. That's right. It's a beautiful thing. Barry Stuppler is with us now, founder of Stuppler & Company and Mint State Gold in Woodland Hills, also former president of the American Numismatic Association. Barry Stuppler, thank you very much for taking the call here. Another record-shattering day for gold and silver, getting close to the highest it's ever been. That was last seen back in 1979. Give us your reaction to the big news here.
Well, we've got an exciting market. I mean, gold is at a record high. The high it hit overnight, pretty close to that, is 38.33. That's up 45% for the year. Silver is at a 11-year high of roughly, it hit a high of 47.10. That's up 62.75%. And I'll know this will make you happy, Frank. After 4 years of being beat down badly, platinum is actually up right now, showing a 77% increase for the year. That's the highest precious metal increase in history for platinum. But a lot of people came into platinum as an alternative to gold and silver because it was so cheap, and it drove up the price substantially from a $900 to over $1,600 in so far this year. So we're seeing a lot of demand, particularly for gold and silver, not that much for platinum, but most of the demand is gold and silver. And a lot of the things that are happening in the world right now are dramatically driving that market up, because it's not coming up necessarily just in the United States. Most of the strength, if you look at the market, is coming from India, coming from China, coming from London, and then obviously the U.S. markets. However, if you watch the market as it rotates around, particularly the gold market as it rotates around the globe, you'll see that most of the strength is coming out of India and China, who are running away from the dollar, absolutely running away from the dollar, making the dollar cheaper. It was hit again today. It's trading at about I think 11-year low right now. So the lower the dollar goes, the higher the precious metals are going to go.
On your line with Barry Stuppler, what about palladium? Here's one that we don't often talk about, but it too has seen a big run up above 1,300 here all of a sudden.
Well, palladium's up about 37% for the year, but there isn't a lot of active trading in palladium other than from industrial point of view. But it's obviously not as its increase this year is not as good as gold, silver, or platinum. But yeah, it's up 37% this year. But still, gold did better. Silver definitely did better. And a lot of our clients who have been around for 30, 40 years are all happier, very, very happy right now with their investments. And at the end of the year, when we do an update for their holdings, I think they're going to be even happier, because I think gold's going to 4,000 by year end. I think silver will definitely hit 50. And as far as platinum is concerned, it may see 1,700. But I think the strength right now in the market is gold and silver. Platinum tends to just be following and people that are looking for alternatives.
Very interesting. There was a time, which I'm sure you remember, when platinum was double the price of gold. Is that a likely scenario anytime soon?
I doubt it. The central banks don't buy. You're talking about 2007. Platinum was $1,530 and gold was $833. Obviously, platinum got down to about $900, and gold obviously has gone up to $3,800. And the primary reason is because central banks hold four things. They hold their domestic currency, they hold gold, they hold American treasuries for interest, and they hold dollars. And a lot of them are dumping dollars because the dollar for international trade, the Chinese yuan is trying to replace the dollar for international trade right now, and they're doing a darn good job of trying to replace the dollar. So that's part of what's driving the dollar down. Driving gold up is because the dollar is coming down.
Very interesting. And tell us about what kind of sales action you're seeing. It's just human nature when it's in the news, hitting record highs. That's when people tend to clamor for whatever it is. In this case, gold. I remember when gold hit. Every time gold hits a record high, it seems like your business goes up, other businesses go up. Silver, by the way, has not seen a record high since 1979, which was $49.45 back then. So if silver does hit 50, that's going to be very, very big news. And of course, we'll probably renew interest in silver here.
We're seeing a lot of renewed interest right now in silver. Silver Eagles, silver Buffaloes, silver Maple Leafs, they're all very actively traded. And yeah, there is a lot more interest right now domestically in gold and silver. People that I were talking to about investing in gold the earlier part of this year, all of a sudden now it's up $1,000 more than what we were talking about, and they're saying maybe I was just a little late, but the party is still coming on. I mean, I think we're looking at 4,000, like I said, by the end of this year, and I think we're looking at 5,000 probably by the summer of next year. And it's not necessarily because the price of gold is going up; it's more in line with the price of the value of the U.S. dollar coming down. And that's what's driving this market. Plus, a lot of the policies that are out there right now, economic policies and political policies, are also supporting a substantially higher gold price.
All right. Certainly, with prices at these levels, are you seeing people trying to sell their gold and silver now?
Well, I get clients who've owned gold for many years, and they'll call up and they'll ask, is it time to sell? And I give them the same answer. If you have better use for the money, if it's a vacation, if it's a new home, if it's your kid's education, if it's for your retirement, yes, sell what gold you need to sell. But if you don't, there's not a better investment out there. And I've been proven right, particularly this year. Just keep the gold, and when you need the money, then sell it as you need it. But for as far as appreciation is concerned, gold is absolutely on the top of my chart. So I tell them all, and some of them sell a little bit of gold to cover a vacation or whatever, but the majority of our clients are holding their gold, and they're very happy about it.
Or as former president of the American Numismatic Association, and numismatism is coin collecting, right? What are people clamoring for nowadays as far as collectible coins?
A lot of the collectible coins, the value has come down closer to their gold content, so that makes them more attractive. It's like they have very low risk reward because they're not risking much with the gold at $3,800. A nice rare $20 gold piece that sells for around $4,500 or $5,000 has very little downside risk. So we're seeing a lot of that, and the activity level in rare coins is starting to pick up. It was kind of quiet maybe 2-3 months ago, but we're starting to see a lot more activity because people are happy. They're making good money on their gold holdings, and they may want to diversify a little bit. So the rare coin market's been doing extremely well. Just here in the last month, I would say, we're seeing a lot more activity.
Fantastic. Well, Barry, you do a great job there at Mint State Gold, and people can check out your latest commentary there as well at mintstategold.com. Barry Stuppler, founder of Stuppler & Company and Mint State Gold, based right here in the San Fernando Valley, also former president of the American Numismatic Association. Barry, thank you very much for taking the call on this record-shattering day here today.
It's my pleasure, Frank.
Thank you very, very much. And recapping the day on Wall Street, again, gold hitting record highs, approaching $3,900 an ounce. Right now, $38.56. Silver at $46.97 here at the moment after popping above $47. The Dow up 69, the S&P 500 up 18, and the NASDAQ up 107 points. Bitcoin also on the rebound today, just above 114,000 here at the moment. Stay tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back at 6 p.m. with Winning with WINANS. And Ken Winans right here, 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.